that mean I have to be the first to answer every question?
No. Excellent question. We will rotate. Okay, you're only number 2 this time.
Can you hear me? Okay. My number one priority, is that the first part of the question? Oh, thank you. My number one priority is the students and their achievement and their success and providing them with what they need to get there. And my second, I think the biggest issue facing the district right now, and we're not alone with this issue, is the teacher shortage. I think we need to be creative and make that a priority in our budget to attract highly qualified teachers and also keep the wonderful teachers we have and help them to feel valued and help them to recruit their friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Weisford.
I got 2 of them. I think that the first priority that I would have if elected is definitely probably more the fiscal side of things, but that also leads into some other planning that would come with that. One of the things that I'd like to work towards, Joe kind of mentioned the world language program and the middle schools. My children got to experience that, and it's a little sad that the kids in the district right now aren't able to participate in that. The other issue would be student safety, and that is something I want to work towards too. You know, there's a lot of concern by parents over that. And the second part of the question regarding the main issues, definitely staffing shortages, as Wendy mentioned. We, like all the other schools in the country, are facing issues getting teachers in our classrooms.
Thank you. Ms. Skelton.
There's a lot of priorities, but if I had to narrow it down, it would be the fiscal responsibility factor as well, because that plays into a lot of other issues that we need to deal with. I do have some experience with balancing budgets and looking at numbers and making financial plans. And one of the things that we talked about last night at the meeting for the school board was how we could save a lot of money if we improved our BASD virtual online program. So then that would become one of my first priorities, or one of the issues, is to improve that program because it is not being worked on right now. I've been investigating it for my own personal reasons. We're not putting any resources to that right now. And that could be bringing in some of the $5 million that we're paying out to charter schools. So I would be working on the budget and then also working on helping to improve the virtual online academy because I have had a kid in virtual school.
Thank you. Mr. Hook.
My number one priority. Sorry, I'm very nervous. My number one priority would be, I think every answer that everybody's given so far has been great. I could easily say any of those, but my number one priority would be to probably build relationships with everybody on the board and get to know everyone, get to know as many of the needs of the community as I can, and learn as much as I can about what I need to learn in order to be an effective board member and also leader. I think leadership is something that's going to be really important no matter what we're looking into in the future, whatever our concerns are. I think the better we lead together, the better we'll be able to do as a board, and we have to work together.
Thank you. Ms. Hogan?
Thank you. Yeah, so my first priority if elected, I think, is similar to Matt's. It's building personal relationships. The past 4 years have taught me that that really is the most important thing. If the board is collaborating well, the board can do its work. We work better when we're collaborating. So all of the teacher shortage is absolutely a concern. The climate of buildings, absolutely a concern. These are all very important concerns. The biggest issue facing the district is, I believe, the budget and fiscal planning. We really need to look at advocacy, working with our legislators, and making sure that the unfunded mandates start being funded, and that the state keeps its promises that it made to us decades ago.
Thank you. Ms. Scott?
Okay, so my first priority on the board is certainly to welcome any new ones that make it on, of course. And again, building those relationships are important, and I do look forward to working with a great board. Also, as far as the teacher shortage, from what I heard from administration, it's getting better. We have been able to hire quite a few, and that's good. The flip side of that is fiscally and funds coming into the district. You know, it's the situation's so fluid right now, but that would be the one concern that I have right now.
Thank you. Mr. Brad Updegrove.
So as was stated already, it's nice that a lot of us are in agreement with many of these issues, first of all, but the budget is definitely important. If we don't get the budget under control or have a good solid budget, none of these other things are really going to be able to happen. And I certainly do not want to make any more cuts or anything like that. The teacher shortage we're talking about, there's also a substitute shortage. I actually sub occasionally at the high school, and students are going to study halls instead of being in the classroom. At the elementary level, students are losing their specials because the gym teacher has to go teach third grade. My kids only like gym, so that's hard for them to do. But we just need to look at ways to make it appealing for teachers to want to come here and let them teach and not analyze everything they do and look over their shoulders, and make it a great place for them to want to come here and teach.
Thank you. Mr. Roger Updegrove.
The first priority would be to get the kids back into school. We're having a problem with transportation, and that is something that has to be addressed with in the budget and the upcoming other budgets that we're up against. The teachers is one thing. We have to work together as a board to try and get that accomplished for both parties. We also have to work on a safety issue. We have to have more security in our schools, which costs money. So there's a lot of things these board members are going to have to address when they get on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Piccioni.
Everything that everybody has said so far have to be priorities. And to kind of piggyback on people that talked about the budget and fiscally, really what we need is we need more long-term planning. Right now, it seems like the budget is, just try to get through this year and we'll figure out next year, and that's really no way to budget. In my household, I can't just worry about my bills for this month. I have to worry about my bills moving forward. I have to plan out how I'm going to pay them, how to save, and we're not seeing that right now with the budget. So my top priority would be to put into place a long-term plan of multiple years of how we're going to sustainably fund the district.
Thank you. Next question. What do you believe, or how would you define social emotional learning, or SEL? And if you're elected, would you support it? Again, how would you define or what you believe is social emotional learning? And if elected, would you support it? We'll begin with Ms. Weisford.
I'm glad you actually picked me first for this. And the only reason why I say that is if anybody was at the school board meeting or watched it last night, they spent about an hour and a half on the presentation of how that is currently being instilled in our students right now. So do I support the teachers and the administration with what they presented? Absolutely. I encourage all of you, if you didn't get to watch the presentation regarding it, I would go back and look at the recording because they did a great job explaining how it impacts every school at every level and how it impacts our students.
Thank you. Ms. Skelton?
I was at the meeting yesterday too, and they did do a very nice presentation of the whys and what it is. I did not walk away with a good understanding though of how we are going to incorporate SEL into our curriculum. It's not a separate program. It's something that was defined as using teaching moments, and I do agree with teaching moments. Had a really good one with my daughter today as we tried to get a bird out of the house that somehow got in the wood-burning stove and then flew up to the top, and we couldn't get it out, and of course my husband's out of town. But we don't have a good idea of what those teaching moments are going to be in the classroom, and that's pretty subjective. So I don't know how the teachers are going to be measured on that, and I don't know if those lessons, if they're about social emotional learning, if that's going to coincide with what they're learning at home, and if that is going to cause any conflict at home. So I would like to know more about that plan and the actual details before I confirm it.
Thank you. Mr. Hope?
Hi, everybody. So I work as an emotional support teacher. I've actually worked with social emotional learning for quite some time, about 15 years. Wasn't familiar with a debate about it until recently, but I can tell you some stuff about it. It's more of a philosophy than it is a curriculum. One of the things that I was disappointed about is just that it took this long for education from the top down to be presenting it and explaining it to everybody, because it shouldn't have taken this long for everybody to know what it means. Now we're in a position where we have to defend it when I think everybody would agree with just about 99% of what's in most social emotional curriculum anyway. We teach kids how to ask politely. We teach kids skills that they need, like asking for a break.
Thank you. Ms. Hogan?
Thank you. So this is from our presentation last night. These are our priority areas for SEL. Ensure that students feel secure in all school environments so that they are ready to learn. Inspire a positive school environment with mutual trust and respect. Strengthen the home and school collaborative partnership. Value student voice. Improve the instructional framework to ensure learning, growth, and success. Increase opportunities for all students to succeed in a changing world. Transform professional learning, focused on growth for personnel to ensure engagement, relevance, and vigor. Optimize time, talent, and contributions of staff, students, and community members. This is available online. I'm going to leave it there. I'm running out of time.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Ms. Scott?
Okay, so Mrs. Hogan and I are actually on the curriculum committee, and we did appreciate working with them. They did a lot of the work, but we did ask for certain things to be part of that presentation. We felt that it was important for the community to hear, the board needed to know, and we want to be very transparent with the curriculum. That's my goal. I know Mrs. Hogan feels the same way. Social emotional learning has a couple different aspects. As I see it, it does have a restorative aspect for struggling kids. I don't see how it plays into every class that these kids have and what that looks like. And when you don't know what something looks like, you can't decide that it's okay. You have to know what it looks like. An uninformed decision for our kids is not the right way to go.
Thank you. Mr. Brad Updegrove?
So I understand social emotional learning as it teaches students about managing their feelings. That's kind of the basis of it. It does a lot more good than harm. I think we're really looking for bad things in there that really don't exist. I kind of think of it as like corporate culture, right? You don't teach that, there's no lesson for it. And if you're looking for how is it applied, well, you never know when a teaching moment's going to come up. So how are you going to know until it happens? So there's really no curriculum for it. It's a philosophy about how to make the kids feel good. Sorry. Well, I'm done anyway.
Just a reminder, when Mel raises her hand, that means you have 30 seconds. But if you're not looking at her, that could,
That's why I keep my
Yeah,
arm up.
I know you do.
Absolutely.
I can see that. Thank you. Mr. Roger up to Grove.
Yes, at the meeting last night, it was explained to us about the social emotional learning. And I think the administration did a great job in doing that. It answered a lot of questions. There might be still some floating out there that aren't answered. But I know our teachers are in this 100% to teach the kids. And I just think that Boyertown is a good school to learn life skills that are going to lead you on after you graduate.
Thank you. Mr. Paccioni?
Thank you. So other people covered it. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to view the, well, I did get a chance to view the presentation last night, but because of the audio, I honestly couldn't follow it or hear what most people said. But as an educator, I'm intimately familiar with SEL. It's been a part of teaching and learning for decades. These are the kinds of things we talked about when I took teaching classes, 20 years ago when I was in college learning to teach. And to me, SEL is defined, it's just learning skills like self-reflection, self-regulation, overcoming adversity, having resilience, and trying to be a good citizen. It's really the early version of civics. And if you ever saw that poster where they used to have where it's like everything I ever needed to know I learned in kindergarten, well, that's SEL. So if somebody's telling you SEL's bad, you have to wonder what is the ulterior motive from that.
Thank you. Ms. Kratz?
Okay, I will admit I missed the presentation last night, so I need to catch up on that. I think the issue or the question I have is that SEL can mean different things in different places, and a lot of the things that have been mentioned tonight sound like things that good teachers do already. Things that I did when I was a teacher, things that you do when you introduce working in groups, things that you do when you introduce your classroom rules. So I guess my question is, how much, if it's not really a curriculum, how much are we paying for it? Are we paying for a curriculum that we maybe don't need? Are we paying for training that maybe teachers have had that training already? Maybe they could train each other. I guess, there's only so much money in the budget, and we keep mentioning the budget. If it's between SEL training and foreign language, I think I would pick foreign language.
Thank you. Next question. If elected, will you support age appropriateness regarding reading materials in the schools? Again, will you support age appropriateness regarding reading materials in the schools? Begin with Ms. Skelton.
I support the First Amendment right, and I don't support banning books, but I do support age appropriateness. I do also support parental rights in deciding what they think is right for their children. And yes, we can look up books on the library website. However, I think that it would be a lot more transparent if a parent asked for a list of the books in the library to review. That would be better. And I also didn't like online that there are favorite books for teachers. A child, especially in elementary school, is very impressionable, and if it's a book that a family member may not think is appropriate for their child, this child may be reading a book to please a teacher and being a little more confused than at home when the parents aren't supportive of the material that the child read. So I think we can be a little more transparent.
Thank you. Mr. Hook.
So I don't support book banning. I do support parents wanting to know what their children are reading in the classroom, because I've been that parent before. I do think, I know that there are policies already in place. I also hear a lot of people's concerns and understand why a lot of people feel like those policies maybe aren't transparent enough. I think that there's a way forward through that. I think that there's a way for us to compromise and have an adult conversation about it at the board level. And I really believe that it's possible for maybe not everybody to be happy, but for everybody to have their concerns heard and still preserve, free speech and not ban books. Hopefully that doesn't.
Thank you. Ms. Hogan?
Thank you. Yes, I do support age-appropriate reading materials in schools. I am not for book banning. I absolutely support parental rights. I think parents are collaborators. They're really important collaborators in the educational experience. And I believe that, family values start at home and that schools need to collaborate with parents to make sure that if parents have questions, that they're answered, and if they want alternate reading materials or alternate assignments, that they're given. But I think it's also important to protect all parents' rights, and that means upholding the First Amendment and really making sure that everyone's rights are protected. These are public schools, and they are here to serve the public. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Ms. Scott?
Okay, so there are books in our libraries that are not age appropriate in my view, and I've spoken about it at the board. My solution to that is very simple, because I do respect every parent's rights, not just what I think, but what they feel is best for their children. Your child, your business. What I feel, and this is a policy I'm hoping that we can look at, is that parents who want to opt into allowing their child to see pornography or over-sexualized books, or even those books that, anything that might be a little sordid like that, they can opt into that and allow their child. Those parents that don't, they can opt out. It's as simple as that. It's easy to do with our library system, and it's just an easy way to do it. We also need to have a metrics for the librarian to know when it needs to be done.
Thank you. Mr. Brad Updegrove.
So I also do not support banning books, and I believe in transparency for parents. So of course, if they have a problem with a certain book, they should be allowed to have their child removed from the lesson or whatever the situation is, or maybe let the library know that they're not to take it out. However, we can't have a few parents making that decision for all of the parents in the school. If we got rid of most books that some parent didn't like, we probably wouldn't have many books left. And I'm not even sure that there is pornography in the library. That's a pretty extreme statement. We understand the term differently, because if it was, I'd be pretty upset about it. But we just need to be careful about how we're saying things, because it gets people excited and angry when it really might not be there in the first place.
Thank you. Mr. Roger Updegrove.
I feel the same way the other board members do.